to my review of the Thorn Nomad MK2.
What I wanted to do was cycle from Europe to South Africa via West Africa. And when I was looking for my bike, my key priority was reliability. Nothing more, nothing less. It's now 3 years and 20,000 kilometers later, all of which I've spent cycling in Europe. The pandemic arrived when I was on the edge of Africa in the Spanish autonomous city of Melilla. However, I've spent enough time in the saddle of this bike to tell you if it has lived up to my expectations.
So let's start with the frame. I get a lot of questions about the size that I have. I'm 186 centimeters tall, it's quite tall, and I got the biggest frame available, the 620L. And for me, it's a perfect fit. The frame is made of high quality heat treated steel. The frame can accommodate 3 bottle cages, and there's loads of room in the frame for big bottles, and also down here for another big bottle with loads of clearance from the front wheel. There is the saying, steel is real, and what can I say, it definitely rings true here. Overall, very happy with the frame. The bike feels rock solid and yet is incredibly comfortable to cycle. The long wheelbase definitely helps here, and while the bike is big, it is surprisingly nimble and quick. I've also been asked if I've got any rust on the frame, and while the frame does have some small scratches, it is rust free. For the forks, I went with the typical Thorn Nomad MK2 forks, chromo twin plated steel fork. I find them super comfortable, super strong, both unloaded and unloaded. The bike handles beautifully. Super happy with those. Okay, and let's talk about this beast right here. This is the roll-off speed hub, and I'm absolutely a massive fan of this piece of kit. It's been super reliable, exactly what I wanted. I've had to do pretty much almost no maintenance. The only maintenance I've had to do is change the oil. This has to be done every 5,000 kilometers. I've done it 4 times. The oil change kit's relatively inexpensive, 15, 20, 25 euros maybe. Relatively easy to get in Europe, some places easier than others, so just bear that in mind if you are looking for them. As you can see, I have a chain equipped Nomad, again super reliable, no problems apart from the typical chain maintenance where you clean it, wipe it down, oil it. I've had to occasionally tension the chain because on this bike the chain stretches and loosens, easily rectified by the eccentric bottom bracket. Loosen it up, rotate it as required, and the chain is nicely tensioned. I've gone through I think 3 chains over 20,000 kilometers. Very easy to change. A typical Shimano 8-speed chain is more than adequate if you're at a loose end from Decathlon, for example. Cut to size, adjust your eccentric bottom bracket, fit and put together. Away you go, easy. So chain rings on the front, I've got a 44 tooth front chain ring. On the back I've got a 19 tooth rear sprocket. And in my experience touring throughout Europe with a loaded bicycle up several mountains, perfectly adequate. What I also like about these pieces of equipment is that they are both reversible, which means they have an extended lifetime. Even after 20,000 kilometers they look in still pretty good condition. I've only reversed the front chain ring so far. The rear chain ring is still looking very good. My wheels, I've got the RYDE ANDRA 26-inch 32-hole rims. On my rear I've got a CSS treated rim, which basically means it makes the rim a lot stronger and a lot more durable. And what can I say? I've not had a single problem with either wheel. No broken spokes, no problems. Both rims look in exceptionally good condition. So overall, very happy with the wheel building from Thorn themselves. Now, the only minor problem I faced was when I was in the snow. The rear rim here got covered in snow and I experienced some loss of braking power. I think it is a known issue with the rim brake and the CSS treatment. When it gets very wet, you tend to lose some braking power. So in hindsight, maybe I should have gotten a disc brake on the back of this bike, but I'll come back to that point a little bit later.
For brakes, I went with the Shimano DEORE V brakes, and apart from the minor CSS problem, I'm pretty happy with them. Modulation, control of the bike with these brakes is supreme, and maintenance has been minimal. I've changed the cables once, but only because I wanted to. As for brake pads, well, I'm still on the original set here on the rear rim. They require a different kind of brake pad, and it seems like they last forever. On the front, I've changed them 2 or 3 times already, just a normal brake pad. However, this is probably because in these wet conditions, when I lose that little bit of braking power, I tend to use the front a lot more, and I think this is why I've worn them out a lot quicker than I have on the back. The Nomad MK2 frame does allow for a disc brake setup on the rear. The conversion itself will cost me about 160 euros. When I bought the bike, I went with the future-proof roll-off, which means that it has 4 bolt holes for a rotor that can be fitted. The Thorn Nomads typically come with SCHWALBE tires, which are highly regarded within the cycling community. I started off with the 26 by 2 inch SCHWALBE DUREMs, and I've since changed to a slightly wider tire, the 26 by 2.15 inch SCHWALBE Mondials, which are a bit heavier but handle just that little bit better on the rougher terrain. They are very puncture resistant, and I typically only got punctures towards the end of their lifespan of around just after 10,000 kilometers or so. I typically rotate my front and rear and vice versa to extend their lifetime. I think the most I got was about 12,000 kilometers off a set of tires. At the moment, I just have a cheap set of Decathlon tires because I don't want to destroy my SCHWALBEs running around the city. SKS front and rear mudguards or fenders, whatever you want to call them, perfectly adequate. The first thing I would recommend is getting the biggest size available. That will allow you to fit bigger and wider tires onto your bike. The second thing I would recommend is keeping the mudguards on the bike. I definitely prefer having mudguards. I cycled through a very wet and muddy Portugal in 2019 without a rear mudguard. My rear panniers were continually wet, continually caked in mud, and I did not like that at all. As for mud, the only difficulty with them is getting the sticky mud out of them when you do get bogged down in the mud. This is probably where their major disadvantage lies. However, it's a very rare event in most places, so perhaps an option is just to remove them when you are cycling through certain places that are renowned for this awful sticky mud that you sometimes get. On the rear, I've got the default Thorn rear carrier, totally reliable, no problems whatsoever. On the front, I've got something a little bit different. I went with the Surly Nice rack. Now, it offers a couple of different configurations on the front. You can have a quite low hanging front pannier bag, or you can bring it up slightly higher if you want to mount it higher and give you a little bit more clearance off the ground, which is quite handy when it's quite rocky. I've hit the bottom of my Ortlieb bag and put a nice little hole in it, and since then I typically carry them a little bit higher. Now, what it also provides is a flat platform at the top of the rack, which I find very handy. Often I use it just to put things down there when I'm loading my bags, or even I strap a bottle of water, amongst other things, loads of things. If you don't mind that extra little bit of weight for the front carrier, I would definitely recommend that Surly Nice carrier. I have the impressive Schmidt Edelux 2 LED headlight mounted onto the front of my rack, and while the cost may put you off, I can honestly say it is well worth the investment. The build quality is top-notch and the light it provides is excellent, not only for your own ability to see where you're going in the dark, but also for other traffic to see you coming. Now, the magic with this headlight is that it is powered by the Schmidt Sun 28 Dynamo hub, and this is what powers my headlight, and this is what allows me to charge my batteries, which I will come back to shortly. Now, I don't want to get into too much depth here, and there's quite a lot to say about this, but for me, the 3 main cons here are the price, the limited output, and the fact that you have to be moving to charge anything. So in some places this is not a problem, where the landscape is flat, like the Netherlands for example, and you can cycle 9-10 hours a day, keeping that average speed well above 14 kilometers an hour. you can charge your goodies, no problem. However, when you get into mountainous terrain where your average speed drops well below that 14 km/h mark, you will not charge your batteries. And for me, this was a bit of a problem. So a lot of people ask me if I experience any drag on the front hub here, and I can honestly say, no, I do not. I mean, if there is any drag, it is minimal. So how do I charge my batteries, you ask? Well, let's have a look. The SINEWAVE's cycle reactor. As you can see, it is mounted on the stem cap here. Very neat, the cabling all through the tubing. It pops out down here on the underside and runs along the side of the fork down to the dynamo. Here is the USB interface where you connect your USB cable, and at the end of which you connect an electronic device like your mobile phone, GPS, or even better yet, a buffer battery. I've since added an Anker 14-watt USB solar charger to my system, which I used in the summer of 2020 in southern Spain, where I had full sunshine over 12 hours a day. The performance difference between the solar panels and the dynamo system, the solar panels kicked ass. Seriously, easily outperformed the dynamo system. Another bonus, of course, is that you don't need to be moving to charge your devices. The Brooks B17 saddle. So I had never ridden with a Brooks saddle before I got this Nomad, so I decided to go with it. And in the beginning I struggled with the saddle. However, after putting a few thousand miles or kilometers into it, super happy, I'm in love with it. In the beginning it requires a tiny little bit of maintenance, a little bit of a wax and a polish, and occasionally you might have to tighten it up at some point. And other than that, it's best to keep it dry, so whenever I stop at night I just pop a plastic bag over the saddle just to keep any dew, condensation, rain, whatever it might be, off the saddle. Keep it nice and dry. Handlebars. YUMA Comfort bars. I think they're called YUMA Comfort handlebars. As you can see, butterfly touring bars, not recommended by Thorn at all in their mega brochure. There is a nice piece about why they do not recommend them. I went against this advice and I love them. I find them super comfortable. I found the Thorn Comfort bars super uncomfortable, and these bars are dream bars for me. I have since added ergonomic grips onto the bars just for an extra little bit of comfort. I suffered with sore hands on some of my older bikes, and with these bars, nothing, no problem at all. Got lots of different options for grips. I have quite an upright stance, so I can rest my hands here if I want to, and operating the controls is also super comfortable. Finally, the Zeffel spy mirror. Don't go without one. Magic little piece of kit there. So on to final thoughts, and just to start off with, I'm going to deal with two possible sticking points as to why you may not get a Thorn Nomad MK2. So the first issue with a lot of people is the weight of the bicycle, especially nowadays with the emergence and growing popularity of super lightweight backpacking. Now I think a lot depends on what you want to do with your cycling and with the bicycle that you're going to do the cycling with. So for me, I wanted a bike for life, something that was reliable, comfortable and had quality. A bike that could travel anywhere for long periods of times on any sort of surface and in any sort of condition. And this is why I chose the Nomad MK2, because it can do all of these things. So while it is heavy, it's not the primary concern for me. The second one here is price. Now this is not the cheapest bike out there on the bike touring market at the moment. However, what I would say is that what you do get is an exceptionally good value for money. And for me, that is very important. If you are intending to do long-term cycle touring, I would definitely recommend you invest that little bit extra money in your bike. I don't think you will have any regrets. And remember, you don't have to buy new. There is a second-hand market. Although they are hard to find second-hand, they do crop up on eBay from time to time. And also keep an eye out on the Thorn forum, where some people advertise their bikes when they become available. Right, so that brings us to the end of my review of the Thorn Nomad MK2, and as you can probably tell, I'm pretty happy with the bike, and I could therefore highly recommend the Thorn bike as the bike for your expedition.
Remember to hit that subscribe button, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button or the thumbs down button if you so desire, and remember to please leave a comment below. Any feedback is welcome. Right, so I hope you at least found some of this information useful, but I just want to leave you with one final piece of advice, the most important piece of advice, and that is don't get hung up on all the details. Just get that bike, pack your bags, and go and ride. And hopefully I'll see you out there. All right, enjoy the ride.